Would you describe yourself as coachable or uncoachable? Some people love having a really hands-on leader. Others prefer an inspirational leader. Some people like having mentors and sponsors. But I'm actually chatting today about executive coaching. It's been a field that, quite frankly, has both intrigued me and confused me over the years. Some people might argue that I'm uncoachable, which is kind of weird, but they might be accurate. I certainly love coaching. I coached sports for many years. But my question today is, what about you? Do you utilize and leverage formal coaching, executive professional coaches? Do you have an internal coach? Maybe your organization provides that person. Maybe it's more of a mentor sponsor relationship. But as it comes to executive coaching, I've had a lot of opportunities, a lot of conversations with people about hiring a coach for me. Um, People have pitched it. I've actually hired executive coaches to work with our teams. And, there's many times when I've sort of felt like, well, executive coaching is ridiculous. Now, this is a biased point of view on my part, which I apologize to all executive coaches for, because I used to work with a guy and our partner, it was a business partnership, and unfortunately it didn't work out, and I'll take 50 to 51% of the blame for that. But every time he get pissy with me, and that's funny because I can be a pissy monster, he would throw at me that I needed to go see his executive coach, and that was the only thing that was going to cure me. In fact, after one very contentious board meeting, and even though we were partners and it was actually his idea and he founded it and had slightly more shares, I was the CEO. So technically, I owned the board relationship. But the board was stacked with all of his buddies. So after one really contentious board meeting, he told me that it was over unless I immediately saw his executive coach. Well, I think that created inside of me this aversion to executive coaching. I'm sure it would probably make you feel the same. And that probably put a barrier up that over time might have cost me opportunities to potentially have been a better leader, been a better executive, been a better entrepreneur by taking on a coach. But I didn't. About a year ago, a little less than a year ago, I had an opportunity to meet a gentleman named Greg Giuliano. And Greg runs a business called Ultra Leadership. And Greg's written a bunch of books. And after this event that I put on, where Greg was a key part of it, he shared with all of our delegates, including me, this book called Coaching for a Change. And I finally got into reading this book. And the minute I opened it, I was like, this is interesting. This is transformational. This is what I always thought was the good part of coaching. And suddenly, out of nowhere, I'm now applying a bunch of his tools. Now, the subtitle of his book, Coaching for a Change, is How to Engage, Empower, and Activate People. And I would almost suggest that, when you read this book, it's actually going to engage, empower, and activate you. I think the subtitle is a bit of a lead-in because maybe Greg knows enough that there's some idiots like me who are like, oh, I don't need coaching. I don't want coaching. So if it said engage, empower, and activate me, I might turn away. But it did engage, empower, and activate me. And having seen Greg in action, running a workshop, creating speed coaching sessions, I can feel, maybe feel's the wrong term, but understand where he's coming from. Now, this is not a formal book review. Obviously, there's a bit of bias because I think when you meet somebody in person, you see them operate in real life, you get that occasion to understand how they approach things, that it's easier for you to say, I like what they're writing. But there are some really unimpeachable, if you will, lessons that I learned. First of all, leadership is coaching, not commanding. Greg talks a lot about getting out of this old command and control leadership model that exists in business. And you might say, that's pretty simple, blah, blah, blah. But I think what's interesting to me is when I read this book, I realized it takes more discipline, it takes more work, it takes more focus to be a coach leader than a dictator. You know, it's easier to just tell people to go and do things. But the upside, and I've started to experience this in the last couple of months, is I've tried to deploy this coaching approach where really it's about getting the other person to work on the solve, giving them the tools to do that, and encouraging them to do that the results are outpacing what I would call command and control. And the second lesson I just hinted at, which is about, as a leader, not having all the answers. Again, this probably sounds familiar to you. One of my colleagues, Liz Rose, was on a recent podcast with my partners from Sidekick. And Liz talked about the fact that leadership is hard when you think you're the person who has to come up with all the answers. It's hard when you leave the meeting with everybody saying, what are you going to do? It's hard when you leave the meeting with the task list. It's hard when everybody's energy is focused on, hey, you help us solve the problem. And you as a leader, your energy is drained because you're solving the problem. And quite frankly, as leaders, we often have the wrong answers. So one of the keys to coaching is about asking the questions to get your team to then come up with the right answers. And this is the third lesson. Coaching requires the ability to ask great questions, not be sarcastic, not be obtuse, not have metaphors, but clear questions. And this is something I am not good at. I'm curious if you think you're good at it. I probably thought I was good at it. I'm not good at it, but it's something I'm working on. And that one of the things that Greg has is a framework of several questions that I've started to use and adapt, because I think frameworks are like ingredients. You don't have to bake the cake the same way everybody else does. But by going through a series of questions, like what are the next steps that need to happen? What would be the outcome you're looking for? What are the options to getting there? You end up giving that opportunity to the person you're coaching to go away and build out the solution. I'm not saying that this is one of those videos where my life has changed and it was horrible before and it's way better now. But there is some part of me that is excited about the fact that at this stage of my career that I'm learning this opportunity to be a coach. And I'm hoping that as you think about coaching, whether you want to read Greg's book or another book, hire a coach, watch a video, that the most important thing is that you recognize that there is change available to you if that's what your business or your leadership or your current role requires. And I think that understanding how to coach yourself, to coach others, and coach your situation will be one, not the only, but one key pillar in whatever change you're looking for. And if you want to read Greg's book, feel free to tell him that I sent you. I don't have a commission program, but maybe he'll send me something nice on my birthday. Who knows? But in all seriousness, Coach Harrison, signing off, encouraging you to coach for a change. Bye.